Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, we are here with Jim Morgan of MRA. And without getting too far into it, that's what he's here for. We are going to be talking about surviving the Great Sansdemic, and I'll let him talk about what that means. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Usually we like to do that at the end. So I'll kind of monitor those and we can have Jim answer any questions that you may have. We also are recording this. So if you guys want to reference it after the presentation, you can do that. It's going to be on our website and our YouTube channel, and you can also share it with any of your colleagues or friends. So feel free to do that. But yes, I would like to introduce Jim with MRA. So Jim, whenever you're ready, you can start.
All right. Thanks very much. Pleasure to be with everybody this morning, and I do hope you'll share this with all your friends and colleagues, and feel free to send it out far and wide. The title of this is really From Pandemic to Sansdemic, and good Catholic boy, had to learn Latin as a young child, and the Sansdemic really comes from sans meaning without and demic meaning people. And that's sort of where we're at in Wisconsin and really in the upper Midwest. And so that's causing a lot of what the issues are that we're seeing right now, and wanted to just share some of that information with you. I work for MRA. We're an employer association, and I'm not going to get into all the details of what it is that we do, but basically, if you're looking for HR help, if you're looking for some training, if you need help finding people, or if you need help figuring out how much you should be paying them, let us know and we'd be happy to help you. So let me start by just sort of setting the stage for the conversation this morning. Those of you that have been in the talent business, I guess, for a while, have seen times when we didn't have enough people, or maybe we didn't have the right match of people. And I would argue to this time that this is a little bit different, because in the past, it's usually been an economic issue. And this time around, it's a demographic issue. It's a numbers game, and I know you've heard that. But that makes it a little bit different, because it's not like we have to change the way we're educating people or send people to more to technical college. This is just a flat out, we don't have enough people. So when I was putting this presentation together, my 6-year-old grandson was home from California, and he was asking me what it was I was doing. And in my best 6-year-old voice, I said to him, well, here's what's happening in Wisconsin. We have a lot of people that are getting older. There's not very many people that are moving here. And so we're having a hard time finding enough people to do all of the work that needs to be done. And he said, oh, you're like the dinosaurs. I thought, all right, he's in California. There's no shortage of people. So I said, all right, I'm going with it. So the question then becomes, where did all the people go? If you've been paying any attention, you know, if 10 years ago I Googled remote work, I don't know what would have come up, but it wouldn't have been a list of about probably over 100 now websites that do nothing but help people find remote work. That was one of the side effects of the pandemic. And the pandemic didn't cause the Sansdemic. The Sansdemic was coming anyway. And as what a very smart demographer said to me once, if a child is born today, in 18 years, he'll be 18 years old. Now, I know that's brilliant, but that's the fact. And we've known that this has been coming for quite some time. And quite frankly, we didn't necessarily pay as much attention to it as we probably should have. And now we're in the middle of it. So when you watch the headlines, and these are things that I've just picked up over the last couple of months, and you see stories about things that like this that are on the slide, it tells you that there's something really wild going on out there. That if someone has the ability to offer an $8,000 signing bonus, and any school you drive by has signs up that they need school bus drivers. And all of these things are happening right now, and they're all happening as a result of what it is that I'm going to tell you in just a minute. But you're seeing all these things, and a lot of times people are thinking, huh, I wonder why that is, or boy, that's unusual. I've never seen anything like that before. It's all happening really for the same reason. As a result of that, then you begin to see companies trying to do all sorts of things to say, how do we differentiate ourselves in the market? How do we make our place the employer of choice? So this is where people want to come work. And so this is just a list of things that companies have told me that they're doing. And one of the issues, we'll talk about it in a minute, that has happened is there's an awful lot of people who look an awful lot like me, and they're saying, you know, I never got travel discounts. I never had a buddy. I never got Netflix. What's going on out there? Why do we have to be doing all of these things? And the reality is you have to be doing all of these things because there's been a seismic shift in the balance of power here between the talent and the employer. And what used to be, you're lucky to work here, is now you're lucky to have me working here. And we're having to make some adjustments to that as employers. So any of you that might be on the webinar this morning that are in HR, or if you know somebody in HR, this is your invitation, I guess, to give them a hug today, because this is what HR looks like today. And this pandemic and then Sansdemic has really taken your HR department and basically flipped it on its ear. And they've got more to do now than they've ever had before. And at a time when we're just having a really hard time finding people. So you take what they were normally doing, add that to it, and there's an awful lot going on in human resources. So here's the game plan for the next 45 minutes. One, I want to explain to you why this is happening, because I think if you don't have the background, sometimes people just think, I don't know what's going on out there, but something is. So I'll probably spend about the first 10 or 15 minutes just depressing the heck out of you. So stick with me though, because we'll come out of it again at the end, because then we'll talk about some strategies and what some creative companies are doing in order to survive this. So in a nutshell, here's the problem. Percent of the population ages 15 to 64, basically the working age population. And you see it peak at about 2007, 2008, and then begin to drop off. And every one of those red lines as you go down is a different survey or a different study or a different group trying to predict out to 2090 what this population is going to look like. And you can argue a whole bunch of different things, but none of those are going up. And every percent drop is another almost 3 million people that aren't in the workplace. So you just start taking a look at that and you think, wow. Now, I have no idea how somebody predicts 2090, but I do know you can sit and look at people that are 25 to 35 right now, and they're more likely to have 2 dogs than 2 kids. So I think you can start to make some predictions around that. But this is what's happening. So this is sort of the overall look at the United States as a whole. This is what we're up against. And so at the end of the day, you know, this is a numbers game. And I hope you all stayed up and watched the Bucks last night, because I'm hoping I don't have to change that picture on the left, because I think they're still going to be champions a year from now. But the talent has won here. They're driving the decisions. They're making all of these things happen. And you see people talking about this in terms of, wow, we're below 3%. Isn't that great? Well, that's great unless you're looking for people or you're in the HR department. And while it's a good indication that folks are, you know, working again and the economy is good, when you get below 3%, you really are at full employment. And you're starting to dip into a group of people that historically you probably haven't had to spend much time recruiting. So let me depress you real quickly, and then we'll move on. You're going to see a theme here in the next 7 or 8 slides as you look at the Midwest and the Northeast. And this is where a lot of the trouble is, because the movement in people and the growth in people is South and West. So, you know, here we go. The 2001 to 2021, the decline of young people, that gives you a pretty good indication of what's coming in the future. We are not a very diverse state. In each one of these states, there's a number or year, and that's the year that that state matched the United States diversity. So Wisconsin looks like the United States in 1974, Iowa 1930. So if you're, what that means is you're a person of color, you're trying to figure out where it is you want to move. You may not want to move to 1974 or move to 1930. On the flip side, you look at Texas, you look at California, they look like what we're going to look like 38 years from now. And so that matters as we're trying to attract talent and to try to get people to move to Wisconsin. We are not really a place that people in other countries are saying, that's where I want to go. I want to go to Wisconsin. That's the place that I want to be. And so we're not getting a big influx of folks from other countries. We're also not getting a big influx of people from other states. And that's for a variety of different reasons. But one of them that I always share, and I still think it's true, this is an image thing. And what is Wisconsin? Well, Wisconsin is probably twice every winter when it's 40 below zero and it's snowing out. There'll be some guy who weighs 400 pounds with a cheese wedge on his head and a beer in each hand at a Packer game with his shirt off. And people say, oh, Wisconsin, there it is. That's part of it. But I think there's also an image thing, and where is it that I want to go? And the reality of it is people sitting, as a young kid or a high school kid or a college kid in South Carolina or in Colorado aren't saying, boy, I can't wait to move to Wisconsin. And so as a result, we're not seeing that influx of people either. We're not really a destination. We're not a hub. We're not one of those places like Florida, the Carolinas, Seattle, Portland, Austin, where folks are flocking to, especially younger people. And there's a real simple rule of thumb. Where do 25-year-olds want to go? They want to go where other 25-year-olds are. And so if that's where they're heading, then that's another attraction spot. And right now, we don't really have that. Our largest city is doing really incredible things, but it's not one of those hubs. Madison has sort of become a mini hub, but not to the extent that some of the bigger cities are. And then we're getting old, excuse me, and we're getting old pretty quick. And again, you'll see the Northeast, the Midwest, there's a little bit more dark blue other than Florida, and that's for easily explainable reasons, but getting a little bit lighter as you go south and you go to the west. And then the last place we can get people is just naturally. And not to make everybody uncomfortable, but we're not reproducing either. And in fact, in the United States, we haven't hit break-even point, which is about 2.1 children per female, in 49 of the last 50 years. And so that explains, again, that very first chart that I showed you. So you're starting to get a picture now as to what's going on. And I know you're all sitting here looking at this right now saying, what in the world's going on in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska? My only conclusion is there's nothing else to do. And so they're the overachievers, I guess. But that's sort of the quick snapshot of what's happening out there. And then here's our population, and the Applied Population Lab at the UW-Madison. Their job is to basically try to predict what Wisconsin's going to look like. This is their prediction from the 2010 census. They'll be updating it soon, but they predicted 2010 to 2040. They've been doing relatively well. And all you have to look at is where is our growth taking place? And you'll see that almost 95% of our growth is over the age of 65. And when you start thinking about what that means in terms of healthcare and transportation and universities and all those types of things, you get a pretty scary picture of we're going to have a lot of people needing a lot of things and not very many people to pay for it. And so we're sort of set up here for this perfect storm. So that's the depressing part. Here's what's going on in the workplace. I mean, this is not a surprise to anybody, but you're seeing incredible numbers of boomer retirements, 10,000 people turning 65 every day, and a whole bunch of them got out a little bit early because the pandemic, technology, I don't want to mess with all of this stuff. So the boomers are falling off. The millennials are coming up like crazy. And if there's any Gen Xers in the audience, congratulations, you were in charge there for about 18 months. So good job, well done. Lastly, there's a goldfish on there. And if we were all together, I'd say, okay, who wants to take a shot? What does the goldfish mean? The goldfish really has become sort of the generational stereotype for the Gen Zers as they begin to come up and into the workplace, and that is attention span. If you've ever had a goldfish, you can sit and tap on the side of the glass of the fishbowl for 7 or 8 seconds and hold on to that goldfish's attention. That's the stereotype for Gen Z. Now, there's stereotypes for all of us. I was part of the no good, ponytail, dope smoking, anti-war, never going to amount to anything generation, and we did okay. That's just sort of human nature to think the generation behind you is the one that's going to screw everything up. The Gen Z folks, the millennials, I'll talk about in a little bit, bring incredible talents to what's going to happen in the workplace, but they do things differently. Not better, not worse, differently. And we're going to have to figure out how to adjust to that. And that attention span is one of them. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. So that's what's happening. That's the end of the Depression. So we have 3,000 members throughout the Midwest. We're in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. And what I'm going to share with you now is what we heard from them when we went out and talked to them and said, what does your candidate experience look like and how has it changed? What's your onboarding and employee experience and how has it changed? Are you an employer of choice, meaning are you the place that everybody wants to work? And then close up with about 10 different, these are some wild things that I saw companies saying they were doing that I never in all my days of doing this thought, wow, I can't believe companies are actually having to do that to find people. So what's your candidate experience? I'm going to go back to the goldfish here. If you are hiring, and I'll focus a little bit on this one, you know, Gen Z, millennials, younger people, they're bringing a whole different work experience to what's about to happen. You know, these truly are your digital natives. They've grown up with it and they have a different set of expectations. So you're trying to hire people. I'm telling folks, I used to say 3 weeks from first touch to hire. Now I'd say it's probably down to 2 weeks, because if there's nothing else that we know that when they're looking with you, they're looking elsewhere. When they're interviewing with you, they're looking elsewhere. When you offer them a job, they're looking elsewhere. When you hire them, they're looking elsewhere. And once they get the job, they're continuing to look elsewhere. And that's not disloyalty, that's not caring. It's a different world, and I'll try to explain that to you. So this is a group that if your web experience isn't easy, and if that isn't a really good first impression, you're in a whole bunch of trouble, because they're going to read that website and your presence there is sort of the first indication that either this company gets it or they don't get it. If your application process is a writable PDF that they have to fax into the office, you know, forget it. That's not going to work for them. If you're asking them to fill out a resume and then answer 20 questions and then put a cover letter in there, they're probably not going to do it. And if any of you have applied for a job, there are companies now where there literally is an easy button. You upload your resume and it takes the information and it feeds it in, and that's about the extent of the application process. And the argument that I would make to you is your job is to get as many people into your funnel as possible. We can sort them out later, but we want to make sure that we get them in there. If you don't have your marketing department helping you with your HR department, you're missing out. These job descriptions have to be interesting. The way that we try to attract people has to make the place look exciting. It can't just be a list of 50 bullet points and we hope like heck there's something in there that matters to them. This is a group that lives in an Amazon world. They can order something online, know when it leaves the warehouse, know when it's on the truck, and know when it's going to be delivered. So in your interviewing process, as they go through the candidate experience, they want to know where they're at, when you're making a decision, and how many other people are involved. We hate it when they ghost us, when they don't show up. They hate it when you say, oh, I'll get back to you next Friday, and it's been 3 weeks and they haven't heard from you lately. So you're going to lose them. Is your interviewing process done quickly? It can't be 3, 4, 5, 8 weeks for us to get this done, waiting to get on the vice president's schedule, whatever it might be. Companies are starting to look at it. We will forego the references, the reference and background investigation, the drug testing. We might get it later, but we can't be delaying the hire in the meantime because we're going to lose people. I've been telling people that we have as members of ours, you know, are you on Instagram? Are you on TikTok? And they're looking at me like, what are you, nuts? I'm a manufacturing facility. What do I have to do with Instagram? Well, I can tell you that that's where your candidates are. And so they're going to go look for you there. And they're looking for pictures. They're looking for things that show diversity. They're looking for things that show fun. This indicates to them that you have some idea of what a 25-year-old might be looking for. And so if you're not in the places where they're at, then you're missing out on them. Are your interviewers prepared for this round of interviewees? They're going to ask you about, do you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion council? What does your culture look like? What's your policy on remote work? It's a different set of questions that there might have been before, and they're going to interview you as much as you're going to interview them. So what does that look like? And are your people ready to answer those questions? At the end of the day, I would say if you haven't gone through your own candidate experience, I would encourage you to do it, because you might find out all kinds of things in the process, and you can begin to understand, why maybe you're losing some candidates. If you've hired someone recently, ask them what the experience was like. If you lost someone, ask them what the experience was like, because you're in a very competitive ball game here, and this is what it's going to take in order to keep up. So let's say we go and we get that person, and now we're going to bring them on board. That onboarding experience, not the orientation, but the actual onboarding experience, you're basically selling and reselling these people in order to stay with you. So what it looks like while they're a candidate, what it looks like on their first day, their first week, their first month, their 3-month, their 6-month, all of that makes a difference. And we're basically trying to welcome them to our family and make them feel welcome. So we've got to figure out, what does that look like? And if their first day is they come in, there's nobody there to meet them, finally somebody comes and sees them, you stick them in a cubicle, you give them a 3-inch binder with a bunch of healthcare information, you say, hey, read this, somebody will come back and check on you later. That's not a great experience. And so now you're seeing companies that the person's greeted when they come in. The first thing they do is go to a project team meeting and get to meet everybody else that's on their squad. Then they get walked around the office to meet other people. They go to lunch with the vice president of their department. When they come back, there's a box of swag on their desk with a t-shirt and a polo shirt and a mug and whatever else it might be. All of these things saying, we're happy to have you here. And then they've got a buddy and a mentor and people that are going to surround them and make this sort of exchange into your company as easy as possible. So you are really trying to bring them in and make them a part of your team. And I think on this one, what I would say to you is, at the end of the day, that first day, that first week, they're going to go home to someone, their partner, their family, their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, their roommate, their dog, somebody. And someone's going to say, how was your first day at work? How was your first week at work? Their answer to that question is probably the best indicator of how long they're going to stay with you. So what does that process look like? What's your onboarding look like? Do you have a plan for them over the course of at least the first year, and then regular check-ins after that? Once they're there, then what's your employee experience look like? An awful lot of companies, had a motto of around, customer is number one. And that is a very good business model to have. But the pandemic took it out of a lot of people. That was a very stressful couple of years. It's still stressful. And companies started to look around and say, what are we doing with our employees? Because if we don't have great employees, we don't have great customers. And so you've seen a real emphasis on mental health issues, utilizing EAPs, and just checking in, doing pulse surveys to find out how our people are doing. We're doing check-ins, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, regular ways to collect information. We had a company the other day that said, we used to do those and we didn't get much information back from a lot of our leaders. It just wasn't working. And so we changed it. We now ask 3 questions. Have you ever thought about leaving? Why? And why didn't you? Now, if you want to get some information for your employees, ask those questions. Have you ever thought about leaving? We've all had bad days where we've thought, oh, geez, I'm not sure I want to stay. But is it an ongoing thing? Is it a continuous thing where you're thinking, I'm not sure this is where I want to be? Okay, why? Well, I don't like my boss. I don't like my team. I don't like the working conditions. It's not fun. There could be 100 different reasons, but you'll get them. But then you say, well, why not? You're still here. Well, I love my team. I love my boss, whatever it might be. You're going to get answers to questions. And so that might help you if you hear some consistent things. There may be some things you can fix that you never thought about before. There may be some things you can't, but at least you know what's happening. And you'll also find out what you're doing well. What is it that's keeping you here? What are the things that you want? So they're great questions to ask. Don't ask them if you're not going to do something with it. And even if doing something with it means, hey, we know a whole bunch of you are not happy about blank, but there's nothing we can do about that for the following reasons. At least they know that you've addressed it. But you might also find out, as one company did, one of the biggest complaints was school starts at 8:20, our work day starts at 8 o'clock. That means we got 20 minutes where we don't know what to do with our kids. Well, it's not hard to just change the day from 8 to 5 to 8:30 to 5:30. And so the company did that. Another company, and I'll talk more about this, is companies are trying to figure out how does our work life fit in with our life. And can we find groups of people that maybe we are what they're looking for? Manufacturer in northern Wisconsin had a workforce of a lot of snowmobilers, ATVers, fishermen, hunters. And so they talked to them and said, would you rather have 5 8-hour days, 4 10s, or 3 12s plus a little bit more on your off week or your off shift? They almost unanimously took 3 12s. And you're thinking, well, that's just a math thing. That's 4 less hours. No, they got the 40 hours. They figured out how to do it. But you gave them a 4-day weekend. Now, they were ecstatic. Productivity has increased. And you've got a group of people there that probably aren't leaving now, because it's hard to go find some other place where I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or I'm working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's a pretty good gig. And now they've met a lifestyle that those people are probably going to stay with them. This is probably the most provocative thing I'll say all day. It's not a benefit if I don't think it's a benefit. I know, think about that for a minute, but do think about it for a minute. It's not a benefit if I don't think it's a benefit. And we can offer whatever we want, and we can think we're offering the greatest benefits, but I can tell you from experience right now, if you offer a variety of different things, and I'm a 25-year-old with $50,000 of student debt, the number one issue on my mind is, how do I get out from underneath this? And I care more about that than I do about my healthcare. And you can say, oh, that's stupid, that's not smart, that's not a good way of thinking. I'm just telling you that that's what matters to them. If I've got 3 kids, which I do when they were younger, I want healthcare. I want as much healthcare as you can possibly give me. I have an emergency room named after my children, for heaven's sakes. That's what's important to me. That's what matters. Maybe it's 401k, maybe it's vacation, maybe it's filling in that Medigap. The point of it is that companies are now starting to look at their benefits and say, whose lifestyle do we fit into? Because maybe we can get a higher percentage of one group than trying to be everything to everybody. We can't be the best at everything. We can't be the best 401k and the best healthcare and the best pay, but maybe we can be the best at one of those and we can draw some attention to it. If I'm trying to find younger workers, student loan may have a real impact on that. If I'm trying to, increase my healthcare benefits, that might apply more to people who have children. And all of those things are just ways of looking at this, saying, okay, this is another tool that I've got to try to figure out how to do this. And I'll give you a couple of examples of those in just a minute. Everybody's looking for flexibility, shifts, hours, remote work. I never thought manufacturers would be as flexible as they have been, but I'm seeing companies that they're putting together a 9 to 3 shift for parents who have kids in school. They're putting in weekend shifts for people who then can share childcare duties. There's all kinds of things that are going on that folks are trying to figure out, again, how do I meet the lifestyle? Sometimes you can't. And I can guarantee you, if you're a heavy manufacturer, somebody's going to say, hey, can I run that $7 million machine that weighs 8 tons from home? Well, no, you can't. You have to come in for that. But, can we shift the hours? Can we do some different things? Everybody's trying to figure out a more creative way to do it that meets the flexibility of the talent they're trying to hire. And then lastly, the boomerang people, folks are leaving, folks are coming back. A lot of people are looking, they get somewhere else, and then, this wasn't so great. They'll come back again. Treat them well on the way out, because you might see them again. So then, are you the employer of choice? And this one used to be really easy. The employer of choice used to be, basically, it's the person or the company that paid the most money. That's not it anymore. That doesn't hurt. But now you've got companies that are looking at a variety of different things. And especially with younger workers, certain things matter to them. They're looking for a career path. They're looking for a professional development path. They want to know where they're going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 5 years from now. And they want you to participate with them to figure out how to get them there. They're looking for different social justice issues. They're looking for diversity, equity, inclusion. They want to know what the company is doing. Those things all matter to them. And so as you're trying to figure out, again, how do we attract people? What is it that they're looking for? These are some of the things that we're seeing from companies that become that employer of choice, the ones that people are talking about in the community saying, that's sort of the kind of place that I would like to go work at. These are the things that matter to me. So with all of that said, now we're trying to, figure out, okay, this is great, but first we got to find out where in the world are these people. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I would say what has happened in the last 3 years is like nothing that I have ever seen before. And so if people are still trying to recruit like they were 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I'd say even 3 years ago, I think you're going to be out of luck on a lot of things because all of that has changed and companies are trying to figure out where do we go. So here are some of the things that I've seen over the course of the last 30 or the last couple of years or so. What we're seeing now is, these are things that I think companies have to do regardless. If we're playing poker, this is just the ante because people are going to be asking for these things. They're going to be looking for these things. They're going to be expecting these types of things. So this is kind of what companies are just, basically doing because they need to do them. Here are some changes that have taken place. The freelancers, we are seeing more and more people decide, this gig economy looks pretty good to me. I want to go out and be my own boss. I want to do things on my own time. Some 51 million people, saying this is the way that I want to work. So what does that mean for us? It means maybe every job isn't a full-time job. If I'm looking for 2 people in my marketing department, it might not be 2 associate marketing people. It might be looking for skills. I need graphic design, I need public relations, I need communications, whatever it might be. And I might end up having to hire 2 people or 4 people to do 2 people's jobs. Excuse me. So that's a little bit more complicated for me. That's a little bit harder for me, but I'm looking for some skill sets and I have to figure out where it is that I'm going to go to get them. So I don't want to eliminate people who only are looking for that. I want to open it up a little bit more. And so we might have to be looking at people who want to work a little bit differently. Especially for those folks that are in manufacturing, our Department of Corrections does a really good job working with our technical colleges. And there's a lot of training that goes on for people who are incarcerated. And we're seeing a lot more companies now say, all right, they're getting training in there. They're figuring out how to weld, how to run a CNC, whatever it might be. And they have a date when they're going to be available. We have some companies where folks that are actually incarcerated are calling them saying, here's my release date, and I would like to come talk to you about getting a job. This will be a more difficult population of people. There'll have to be more support for them. But it's a group that with no intervention is probably going to end up back where they were. But one of the interventions can be a really good job with some support and a good income that might keep them from going back. And so, are you willing to take a chance? If you succeed, you probably have one of the most loyal employees that you've ever had. But it's going to take a little bit more work. But companies are taking a look there. The niche populations is probably becoming one of the biggest ones. And I mentioned the group that got the 4-day weekend. Deloitte decided to take a look at, okay, what about women whose kids are going to start school? They had preschool children and now they're going to start school. And I say women because still today, the primary child care provider is still the mom. And they said, look, here's a group that's got the education, they had worked, they decided to stay home for a while, they've got the maturity, they've got the organization skills, they got the technical skills. Can we lend some part of our jobs to that schedule? Meaning we've got them from 9 to 3 and maybe some time off for school events, but can we work something around that? And so they did, and they went after this saying, we'll provide this sort of flexible work schedule. And we're very successful in hiring that group of people. And so now what we're seeing is that's a niche population. We had another company that said childcare is one of the big drivers here of people not coming back to work. We need 5 office jobs filled. What if we found 10 people to fill the 5 jobs? And we could go for folks who have preschool children, and the half day that you're working or the day you work, you swap your children with someone else who's working for us. In essence, we're providing a childcare opportunity that we're just facilitating it. You take my kids on Monday, I take your kids on Tuesday. We get to go back to work. We don't have childcare expenses. We can make something like that work. So those are the types of creative things that companies are doing to say, how do we work around people's schedules? What is it that's keeping them from coming to work? And if we can figure that out, then we become a preferred employer. The diversity issue, especially with the younger employees, is just something that is natural to them. They expect it. They think there'll be diversity. They want diversity, not only of color, but of beliefs, of ideas, and everything else. And so as a company, as I mentioned earlier, you're likely to get the question, what's your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative look like? What are you doing? How can I participate? Those are going to be questions that people are going to be asking, because those are things that younger workers are looking for. People with disabilities. Many folks have hired folks with disabilities in the past. I would say a lot of times probably for altruistic reasons. But now it's, there are people with disabilities who have incredible abilities. And so how do we figure out how to give them a job that we still get things done? It's a win-win for everybody, and there are opportunities there. And so companies are spending more time looking at supported employment and figuring out, how do we take advantage of the abilities that some of these people have. We are having a whole bunch of people turn 65, as I said. We had an extra couple of million people get out of the workforce over the last couple of years because I just didn't want to mess with the pandemic and working from home and technology or whatever the reasons might be. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that, for a lot of younger people, there's FOMO. You hear about FOMO, fear of missing out. They want to, be participating in everything. I think my generation's getting to a point of JOMO, and that is the joy of missing out. I don't want to be in budget meetings. I don't want to do performance reviews. I don't want to sit through all of this stuff. I want to go out and help people. I want to go out and work in companies. I want to do facilitation. I want to do whatever it is. We can't just let those folks go and just say, yeah, I think I'm done. I'm out. Well, you don't have to be completely out. Can we have you do some project management? Can you be a mentor for some people? Are there other things that you can do? Because, we've got people that are living longer and are capable of doing things longer. And so, retiring at 60 and living to 85, I like to fish as much as the next person, but 25 years of fishing, 8 hours a day, that's a lot. So what is it that I can do? How can you hang on to me so that maybe I can, remain an important part of the company? I've got knowledge. I've been around for a while. There are things that I know. Where can you put me to work? Because I think I've still got something to give. One of the big growth areas we've seen are internships. We started an intern leadership program here virtually because we had so many companies doing internships and saying, we're looking for professional development and networking. And so we said, all right, we'll put something together. We'll have interns from all over the upper Midwest and actually around the United States who will come together for virtual training and other types of things. And the reason that they're doing it is because this is their talent supply chain. They're bringing in 3, 5, 8, 12, 50, 100 interns with some bigger companies in every field, HR, marketing, engineering, you name it, they're bringing them in because this is their opportunity to sort of kick the tires, see what it looks like, see if there's a culture fit. You have brand ambassadors now in these interns who will go back to their colleges and their families and say, I had this great experience. This is what it looked like. And you as an employer are saying, wow, these are some skilled people. We know what they can do. So we want to stay in touch with them and hang on to them. And when they graduate next May, we're going to grab them. And so people are building their talent supply chain by being the first ones to get to these folks rather than wait until they're graduating in the market. Let's get them early. And then we get sort of first shot, first dibs. And now we've got some additional workers. I don't think for a minute that the immigration issue is going to be solved in my lifetime. I wish it was, but I think we're kind of playing at the extremes. So I'm not sure we're going to have a real concrete solution to that anytime soon. But we do have a lot of US territories, and they have become places for companies to go to, Puerto Rico being one of the most popular. I just had another experience with someone who's going to the Philippines to find people. You don't have the same, hassles with immigration. It's a US territory. In the case of Puerto Rico, over 200,000 people have left the island to come to the mainland. A lot of it started with Hurricane Maria. It's still not exactly the happiest place to work or to live. It's beautiful, but conscious efforts to go, if we can bring back 5 or 6 or 7 people, and then they bring their families, and then they bring their extended families, this has become a place now where folks are saying, I think we can bring people back. There are states that are making conscious efforts to go bring people back, trying to simulate communities, saying we're going to bring a group of folks in, having welcoming and figuring out how do you be the ambassador to a group of people coming from another place. And if that picture just doesn't look like Oshkosh in January, I don't know what does. So how hard can it be for them to adjust? All of us are sort of working 24/7. We're always on our phones, we're doing different things. And I would sort of ask, are you always recruiting? Because there are people out there all over the place. I've coached high school sports since I was 18 years old, and I've hired 5 or 6 people who played for me. And, when they were playing for me, what am I looking for? Work ethic, leadership, character, ability to get along with others, all those same types of skill sets that you're looking for in the workplace. And when I'm looking for somebody, I look back now and say, okay, who was playing for me, 6 years ago? What did they graduate in? If I need an XYZ, I might go back and look at that team picture and say, wow, who are the leaders of that team? The woman who's in the middle screaming there is somebody who I work with now. And as I said, all of them so far have worked out because, this was like a 6-year job interview. What are you doing? Are you working with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts? Are you working with the Boys and Girls Club? Are you helping with the music program at school? Your friends and your kids' friends, and who else is out there? I mean, all of us have, driven, those of us who have kids have driven the big, caravan, and you're listening to everybody talk in the back seat. And I don't know if they just don't think you don't hear them or what, but you know who the kids are that you're thinking, that's who I want my kid to hang out with. And that's the kid I don't want my kid to hang out with. Have you kept track of the ones that you wanted your kid to hang out with? Because there's opportunities out there, and we got to make sure that we're taking advantage of them. Data aggregators. If you haven't used data aggregators, basically they're people that take large databases and figure out how to find things. I got called by a company called MZ, which is now part of Burning Glass. They're a data aggregator, and they were just trying to explain to me what it is that they do. And they said, I told them we do recruiting for companies. And I said, okay, what's the job you're looking for right now? And I said, okay, we're looking for machinists in Waukesha County. All right, let me get back to you. Within a couple of days, they come back and say, well, there's 1,393 machinists in Waukesha County. They're making $36,000 to $49,000. There's almost 400 job openings for a machinist right now in the county. Bottom line, good luck trying to find a machinist. But they shared all this, and you're sort of like, wow, there it is. And then they said, now what we could do is we take this data, which just comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we can put it up against the census data. I can tell you where those machinists live. And I can tell you there's a whole bunch of them out in Menominee Falls. And so if you're looking to open a new facility, you might want to open it in Menominee Falls because a lot of machinists might get out of having a commute at that point. Now, would you like me to sort of put it up against their social media accounts? Because then I can start looking for some other things like, is empathy a part of your job? Or is that a skill set that you think matters? Because I can start scrubbing their social media for, do they volunteer for mission trips? Are they volunteering at nonprofits? Do they coach different teams? And I can start getting you a profile of the type of people that you're looking for. Now, while that scares the heck out of me, it's amazing what information is out there, and it's there. We may not want to believe it, but it's out there. And these companies can help you try to find it. And so it's not as much of an art as it is a science sometimes if you start utilizing all of this data. And then lastly, it's become an Uber world. We have companies that have opened Uber accounts for their employees. So if they can't make it to work one day because their partner took the car that day or the car wouldn't start, they've got emergency account set up that they can get to work that day. We had a company that the public transportation wasn't where their folks lived that were working at their facility. So they said, we'll run an Uber through the neighborhood in the morning and we'll get you back there in the afternoon, because transportation, what was keeping them from being able to come work for them. And then we're seeing Uber hiring, a lot of it in warehousing and in healthcare, where they need people. And I will take 12 hours of you over none of you. And it might be an interview where some of the warehousing folks will say, I'll just bring people in and say, what days do you want to work? What hours do you want to work? How many do you want them during the course of the week? And I'll plug you into the schedule. We saw it in healthcare a little bit, especially as people began to get burned out during the pandemic. They didn't want to give up nursing, but they couldn't do the nursing as it was right then. If I'm in desperate need of some nursing help, I will take you for the weekend or Wednesday nights or this shift or that shift because I need you. And so that type of flexibility is what we're starting to see now in the workplace. So, as you're trying to figure this out, I would say almost everything that I just shared with you, you could start right now. There are things that you could do to start making sure that our HR department is really good at sales, that all of our employees are making sure that they're talking to everybody they know, that we've got a web presence and a process that makes this very welcoming to people. And so they want to come work for us. So we could put someone on each one of these things and say, take a look at it, make some recommendations. How do we get some of these things to be more efficient? On the longer term, I think we've just got to basically get further down into the talent supply chain, middle schools, high schools, technical colleges, universities. We know where our talent supply chain is. It's sitting in a classroom someplace probably today. What are we doing to raise the awareness of what we need and what we do right now for all of those folks? So if you're not sitting on the tech advisory council at the high schools or in on some of the specialized trades at the technical colleges or knowing where people are at UWO, those are all things that we ought to be doing. Where can we go to get people into our facility earlier, whether it's youth apprenticeships or co-ops or internships? How do we get them to start being a part of our organization a little bit earlier? And what are we doing creatively to say, how do we differentiate ourselves from everybody else? We may not be able to compete on all of the traditional benefits, but can we meet a lifestyle need that says, wow, if they can do this for me, this is perfect. Whether it's the hours or the time or whatever it might be, how do we get to some of those long-term things that will keep us in people for a long time? So in summary, I guess, hopefully I've convinced you that this isn't going away. I'm still talking to a lot of companies that are like, oh, this has happened before, we'll be okay. We're not going to be okay the way that we were. The very first slide that I showed you, there just are not going to be as many people, and it's going to be worse here than elsewhere. And so we have to figure out how to do more with less, how to go where the people are, how to stay where we are, but find people where they are and allow them to work from there, or we got to get up and move. And those are really the choices that we have. And this is, I think, where the creativity comes into play. How do we use automation? How do we get the most out of everybody that we've got that companies are going to have to try to figure out? Doing what you've traditionally done is going to be really difficult. Unless you truly are the employer of choice and you can get enough people, you're going to be in some trouble. And so we've got to change. You're seeing that you're paying more for less. I can be in a community the size of Oshkosh. I was making $15 an hour. Down the street, they gave me 60. Across the street, they gave me 17. Down the road, they gave me 18. I got them back for 19. I got the same person back at $4 more an hour. No more skills, no more training. That's what's happening in the market. I don't know how long it can last. I don't know what happens when it bursts. I know companies are worried about what their pay compression is going to look like and what their payroll is going to look like when something eventually happens. But this is crisis mode right now, and we've got to compete. And so people are competing and they're paying more for less. If you start looking at people who are incarcerated, people with disabilities, you're going to be into higher needs groups, and we may have to surround them with more support, and that's going to make it more difficult. None of these are happy answers to the question, but we're going to have to do some different things in order for us to be able to survive. I would say to you that all talent is not equal, and if this pandemic and Sansdemic has done nothing else, it has completely messed up everybody's compensation plans. And we used to have very nice, well, here are our rows and here are our columns and here's how people move, but that just isn't holding it anymore. And companies are looking at their comp every 3 months. They're looking at salaries. They're just basically walking the floor to find out who are we losing and why are we losing them, and making market adjustments on the fly to try to figure that out. Now, what that means is we're paying some people more, we're having signing bonuses, we're starting people at more. So we got to pay really close attention to our 3-year and 5-year people, because if this person just came on board and they got a $2,000 signing bonus and they're making what I was making after 5 years of work, there's going to be some resentment. And so all of this just sort of increases the pay as we go along. But if you've got truly talented people, the really good ones, you may have to pay them more to keep them. And you don't want to give them up because there may not be a replacement for them. And lastly, if your business shifts and you've got good people, you got to figure out how to redeploy them someplace else and make sure you hang on to them, because there just aren't that many of them out there. And so we've got to really look at our best, hang on to our best, because other people are looking, just like we are. And that's what's causing an awful lot of what's happening right now. So this is my contact information. If you want to follow me or MRA on Twitter, I do a lot of stuff there on all of this. I do a lot on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And if I've raised something where you're like, boy, I'd like a little bit more on that, or boy, I wish our executive leadership team could have heard that, feel free to reach out to me. That's my email address there. I'd be more than happy to talk to you, or if you need something more, we can talk about that as well, and try to figure it out. So with that, I tried to finish here with a couple of minutes to go. And if anybody's got some questions, or if something came up in the chat, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Oh, let's see. Someone just said, wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Very informative. So
well, that's it. It was all worth it.
yes, definitely. And it was. I know that this can be a frustrating topic for a lot of people. I mean, it's weird times that we're in. So thank you for bringing so much insight and giving so much information. Yeah, as we mentioned, this is recorded. You can get in touch with Jim. If you want to get in touch with me, I can connect you guys also, but we should have this up on our website sometime today. So please share it with your colleagues and friends. And yeah, you'll be able to go to the Get Involved tab and then our web archive. So that's where you'll be able to find the video. So thank you to everyone for joining. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. And thank you, Jim, for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Enjoyed being with you this morning.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.